Anyway, Mark Connolly is no stranger to Plymouth. In September 2014, he came and addressed the Plymouth area Democrats. And I introduced him as well then. And I made reference to the fact that we were both employees of the Secretary of State Bill Gardner around that time. And I also cracked a dumb joke about the fact that I hope that I played some role in Mark's successes. I still got to laugh. Well, I can honestly say that the reverse is more likely true. Mark is a New Hampshire native who was raised with his brother by a single mother. He worked his way through Dartmouth College before beginning a 35-year career in business and public service. In 2002, he was appointed director of the New Hampshire Bureau of Securities Regulation, where he had a record of taking on corporate greed and special interests. During his 8 years as director, Connolly's efforts and those of the Bureau were recognized nationally, frequently mentioned in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and other national press for the Bureau's efforts on behalf of investors. Connolly was the recipient of the 2007 Securities Enforcement Award of the Year from the North American Securities Administrators Association for his regulatory efforts against Tyco Corporation, ING, Pennachuck Corporation, among others. During his tenure with the Bureau, over $50 million in fines and investor restitution was collected on behalf of New Hampshire investors. Connolly is a graduate of Dartmouth College and holds an MBA from the Kellogg Graduate School of Business at Northwestern University. He is also a former state representative from Bedford, New Hampshire, and he served on the transition teams of Governors Gregg and Lynch, and also was appointed to serve on a blue ribbon committee to study efficiencies in state government. Last November, Mark announced his candidacy for governor, and I am one of many who support Mark in this effort. I am pleased to introduce Mark Connolly.
Well, I'm glad to be back in Plymouth. So let me say hello, Plymouth Democrats.
Hello.
Low energy. Well, before we get started, I just want to maybe take that as a segue to say that it looks like Donald Trump will be the nominee of the Republican Party, and it's hard to imagine that when you think about it. I mean, you think about it, really. And it's been a primary process that's embarrassing for the country. I'm talking about the Republican side. And no matter how you feel about Bernie or Hillary, this is where we are as a party. It's about ideas, and it's about a discussion. It's not about denigrating the kind of things that we do not stand as a country. But the reason I want to mention that is because I've been out talking to a lot of Democrats lately. And I sense that people are beginning to say, well, we're going to win. Donald Trump is so bad, we are going to win. And I'm going to tell you tonight, don't think that. We are a divided country. And a lot of people are coming out, and the anger is real for different reasons. I think in many cases people don't understand why they're angry. And we are an important state in this process. And we are a swing state. We're not blue, we're purple. And I just want to tell you that in the last election, we suffered, in terms of the state Senate and the House and the Executive Council. But we did re-elect our governor. We did re-elect Andy Custer, and we did elect Governor Hassan. And we came close with Carol Shea Porter. And the message I want to give you is there's a reason why we did that. We did relatively better than the rest of the country. It's because we got out and we canvassed, we had letters to the editor, we did all the things that we need to do. Now here's what I also want to tell you, that it's been estimated some $60 million was spent on that U.S. Senate race in 2014, and probably over $100 million was spent in this state. Can you imagine the amount of money that's going to be spent in this year? Let me just give you something to think about. We have an open seat for the presidency, we have an open seat for the governor's race, We have a very highly contested U.S. Senate race. You'd have to go back decades to come up with that kind of scenario. So the point is, we are going to be deluged with money across the country, and particularly New Hampshire. And we're not going to be able to compete dollar for dollar as Democrats with that money. So what we need to do is what we did in 2014 when we were outspent, and the governor was outspent, for example, by Walt Havenstein. And same thing with Senator Shaheen. We have to be organized. Otherwise, we can and will lose. So that's something to keep in mind as we go forward. So let me just talk a little bit about my campaign and some questions if you have it. New Hampshire's a great state. We don't have a lot of poverty. We have natural beauty, great place to raise a family, relatively low crime rate. All the things we hear about. And, you know, it's been out there lately that we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country, 2.9%. All that is good. But we still, in my opinion, have vast economic challenges before us. Let me tell you some statistics. We have one of the highest upward migration rates of young people in the country. The average rate for kids to go to school out of state is 18% in the United States. We're 46%. We've gone down K through 12 14 years in a row. In the last 8 out of 9 years, our population has actually gone down. Outward migration, not inward migration. Some of you may recall back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we would have double-digit GDP. We were going up, 50%, 60% in terms of our population growth in some decades. It's flat now. And so the challenge is, that's a reality, demographic shift. And we have businesses today who cannot find skilled workers. That's a real and present danger. I believe that this state operates best when we have a non-ideological, pragmatic person at the helm. And we've had that for the last 18 out of 20 years. I needed to remind you the last person the Republican elected was Craig Benson. And I think I'd tell you, if you think about the challenge before our state, I'm going to get into some of them, can you imagine if it's Governor Sununu or Governor Gatsis? I mean, we have to be cognizant of that. So I present myself, as Bill said, as somebody who grew up in New Hampshire. I served in public service in 35 years in the public and private sectors. And I want to leave you this thought about myself, because sometimes people want to know who this person is running for governor and wants to represent our state. I've been relatively successful in my career, but I am not like anybody else. I'm like you. I'm like New Hampshire. I don't come from privilege. As Bill mentioned, my parents were divorced he didn't mention this, but my parents were divorced when I was 5 years old. My mother was a secretary. We moved every single year until my mother remarried. And by the time I reached junior high, I had checked out. And I was coded as being a slow learner back in those days. And I was put in the slow learner class for math. And a public school teacher recognized that I'd been miscoded. And with her help, I went from the slow learner class to the advanced class. And the administration didn't want that because they realized they had made a mistake. So I know what it's like to be new. I know what it's like to be without. I know what it's like to be without friends. I was able to then go on to Dartmouth College and was a member of the legislature when I was at Dartmouth. And I ran out of money. I literally had to use all my savings. My parents, were uniquely, a lot of parents, who was going to pay for what, and I had no money, so I was going to drop out. I was commuting to Concord with our state representative, Elizabeth Crory. You might remember Elizabeth. She was from Hanover, long-term member of the Commerce Committee of the House. And she told her husband, who worked in the Army Corps of Engineers, he met with me at a restaurant, and Elizabeth excused herself, and he said, look, I will get you a job with the Army Corps of Engineers, and but you have to make a couple promises to me. One is, I'm going to teach you how to be an assistant engineer. I'm going to send you to Alaska, but you cannot want to come home because it takes 3 days to get up there, the North Slope of Alaska, and you have to graduate with a class at Dartmouth. So I went up to the North Slope of Alaska. And I saw all the things you can imagine. Polar bears, grizzly bears, Eskimos. I fished in ponds that had been fished before. It was an experience of a lifetime. I went back and graduated my class at Dartmouth College. So the reason I want to tell you those stories is I didn't do this on my own. It was other people helping me. It was the public school system who got me to the position where I was able to go to Dartmouth College. It was somebody like Elizabeth and Fred Crory that stepped in a way that my parents couldn't and helped me get through Dartmouth. I then went on to get an MBA at Northwestern. I went to school at night. I worked during the day to do that. And then I came back to New Hampshire and worked at Chubb Life Insurance Company for a decade in Concord. Then went on to work in financial services. And I started witnessing all the things that we read about. The self-dealing, the manipulation of the markets. And I was perturbed by that. And when I was offered a chance to be Deputy Secretary of State, Director of Securities Regulation in 2002, I jumped at the chance. And I'll tell you that within the very first month when I took that job in 2002, I got a call from the New York District Attorney's Office that they had arrested Dennis Kozlowski. He had, as you might recall, basically fleeced the company. The shower curtains and all the things you read about. And so they said, Tyco's in New Hampshire. We want to take action against Kozlowski and some other people, some bad actors. Will you help us? So we issued a subpoena against Tyco, which they initially didn't honor. But we, with the Attorney General's Office, got them to honor it. And between May of 2002 and November 2002, we were able to take all the evidence the company gave us. They wanted us to go against Dennis Kozlowski. And we said, that's fine, but he reports to the board of directors. And we were able to find that many of these board members of the board were also on the payroll, if you will, of Tyco. And we said, in order for us not to introduce this evidence against the board, we want all the board to resign. That never happened before in American corporate history. We got the entire board of directors of Tyco to resign. We got the second highest fine ever paid by a company, and we had Tyco give us their corporate governance procedures. They didn't have any to develop them. We had to review them for 3 years. We had a 10-person agency that did that. We then took on Penachuk Corporation. They were going to sell themselves to a French-based company. And what wasn't revealed in securities filings, that there was some insider trading going on, there was some self-dealing going on. Through our actions, we got that to stop. And today, the city of Nashua owns that watershed. ING, they ran our state deferred compensation program, collecting millions of dollars. Our state employees were members of this. But what they didn't tell the commission, which I sat on, was that they were being paid to play, meaning certain mutual funds that were going in. We were able to get them to reveal that. We got a $3 million settlement, all of which went back to our state employees. They then took on UBS. They had dealt in some instruments called auction rate securities that basically, through their actions of other investment banks, froze the market, and our secondary loan market froze, and a lot of kids couldn't get student loans to go to college. We stepped in, we went against them, we got $22 million back to New Hampshire. The point is, I believe that if you are an effective regulator and you want to take your job serious, you can do it. We did it. And that was the most proudest experience in my life, and that's why I'm running for governor. So that's my background. So let me talk a little about New Hampshire. Here's the reality. We have some of the worst roads and bridges in the country. We rank 39th and 40th in this country, in this state for our infrastructure. We have the highest opiate addiction rate in this country. I don't know if you saw the 2020 show last Friday. That was all about New Hampshire. And we have businesses that are going, as I mentioned earlier, going without workers, particularly in rural areas. Now, these are real problems in our state. The question is, can we come together to address these issues? I say we can. My vision is this. First, we need to have world-class education. We're not competing with Worcester or Hartford or Boston. We're competing with Hong Kong, Singapore, Taipei. This is who we are. And if you think of what's going on in the last several years, we're now engaging in ideological debate about Common Core and what that means, and the federal government's telling us to do this, and all of that. The reality of it is that if our kids aren't ready for this economy, we're going to fall behind further as a state. We need to have collaborative engagement. What that means is we have to look at where the businesses are and the kind of jobs they're bringing, the high-paying jobs, not the casino type of jobs. And we need to align our educational system to meet that. We're doing it now. Albany International in Rochester. Great Bay Community College, our kids are getting right out of school and going into Albany International. We're doing it in Dime Corporation, Silver Tech in Manchester. Steam ahead with West High. We're doing it. We can do a better job. It's about competency-based education, not just measuring time in the seat, but whatever the kid brings to the table. That means college education, college credit in high school. It means, I think, quite frankly, we need to have 4 years of math in high school, only 2. And I'm going to tell you something. We have half the number of teachers in STEM-related subjects, math and science, and we need to educate our kids. When you look at science and math, K through 12, we don't rank against New England very well or the rest of the country. That's a fact. We're going to have some 18,000 jobs in computer-related and high-tech in the next 2 years. We can't fill them all. That is a problem. Innovation, we have to have an innovative economy. What does that mean? We, right now, I'm sure you'll ask some questions about Northern Pass and Kinder Morgan. Here's what I want to tell you. We look at these projects one-off, and it becomes divided. Towns against the state, vice versa. Why don't we as a state have an overall plan that says this is what we are as a state? Does that plan fit who we are as a state? Why don't we look at holistically instead of one-off kind of projects? We should do that. Renewable energy. We have one of the highest fossil fuel rates in the country per capita. Where we have what's called RGGI, we have renewable portfolio standards, and the legislature's gutting it. There is no doubt that for every dollar put in renewable energy, we get $3 or $4 back. There's no doubt about that. This is where the creative economy is going. They want decentralized energy sources. We have to do that. I mentioned our transportation system. You know, these roads and bridges look like 1960, not the 21st century. Can we do it? Yes. If we need to increase the gas tax, should we do it? Yes. We have to have a good infrastructure system. State government. What if I told you tonight we have 67 agencies reporting to a 1-2 year term for government? How do you get anything done? This government hasn't been reorganized or looked at seriously since the days of Walter Peterson. We rank not only some of the worst in terms of efficiency. The Pew Foundation gave us the worst grade, believe it, of all states. But we rank in terms, we got a D- for the Center of Public Integrity, for transparency, ethics, disclosure by lobbyists. You know, all the things we're talking about in the national campaign right now, it's here to a much lesser degree in Congress. We have to have a government, a transportation system, an energy system that matches the needs of this century. Now, I've given you a lot of sobering data, but I want to tell you that I started my campaign in November in Manchester at the Mill Yard for one simple reason. When I was growing up, that sat vacant for decades. Remember that? There was debates to tear it down because it was the old economy and we wanted to see the river. That place today is teeming with cloud computing, engineers, everything. That's the economy we're going for. And I want to have my campaign launched there because the message is that we've done it before, we have a challenge before us now, we can do it again. We have to work together, we have to get beyond the ideological divide, and I believe the best governor we have is somebody who can work with people, who can come to common understanding of what we need to do, and I believe I have those skill set. Being 60 years of age, I've learned how to do that. So let me leave you with this thought. We're a stronger state when we have jobs that match this economy, and higher paying jobs. We're a stronger state when our educational system matches the needs of the century, and we're a stronger state when our government matches who we are. It's open, it's accessible, and it's modern. That's my campaign, and I ask you to consider us, markconnollynh.com, and be happy to answer any question you may have. Thank you.
Mark, you know I support you. I saw Colin's memo today, and my name was on there as a proud supporter of yours.
Thank you.
When Mr. Van Oster was here last month, at this meeting I asked him a question, so in the interest of fairness, I'll ask you the same question. And that is this, that you talked about some of the sobering statistics in New Hampshire, and you didn't mention the fact that our college tuition rates are the highest in the country, and our college indebtedness rates are the highest in the country, and we're graduating students with these mountain loads of debt. Since I've lived in New Hampshire, I've heard the term New Hampshire advantage. And when Senator Bradley talks about that, he means that we have no broad-based taxes. And so that means businesses are going to come in here and be very attractive to doing business here. What I'm experiencing is that businesses have a barrier when they come here because our roads are in bad shape, our infrastructure is in terrible shape. Our students are leaving, our higher education system faces questionable funding year after year from this legislature. There's just a whole our opioid addiction rate is off the charts. We just have all of these structural problems that I think are based on the fact that we don't have a fair and equitable tax system. So I said to Mr. Van Oster, I'm not asking whether you're taking the pledge or not, but I want to know, can we move beyond the question of the pledge and get to a real hard look at our tax structure in the state?
That's a fair question, and I was expecting it. In fact, I think I said this a year ago when I was up here. If I was a magician, I wouldn't create the tax system that we have, okay? And there's no doubt, when you look at the university system, look at property taxes, you look at the opiate problem, I mean, that's a funding issue. Here's what I believe. I believe that somebody like Colin Van Osten or Mark Connolly, who is relatively unknown in this state, is not going to be successful as a candidate if they're going to talk about reforming, changing our tax system. So let me put a period to that, but let me give you another paragraph. I've said that if I'm elected, I will appoint a commission, and I'll put myself as chairman. It'll be a 10-year strategic economic plan to say where we're going to be by 2025, 2030, and the next question is, how do we get there? That's answering what you're saying. The state has voted consistently that they don't want a broad-based tax. There's no doubt about that. I believe we rank 43rd in the country, which we do right now, for business development, new businesses coming in, and we are a small business state. You do not want to run as the person who will come in with a broad-based tax. It doesn't help our economy. So I said education, innovation. What I left out was job creation. If we can get our economy going the way it was back in 2008, you will bring in over $200 million more in revenues that we lost since the Great Recession. And we're starting to do that. The budget now is $70 million ahead than it was projected to be. The economy's coming back, the revenues are coming up. But we do have a structural deficit with the way the budget is. It's the way the revenue streams are, excuse me. So this is what I'll do for like, I will look at our existing revenues, which is interest and dividends tax, which has been gutted, by the way, by this legislature in the last several years. The business profits tax, we'll look at maybe a tax credit here, a tax credit there, bringing the rate down. This needs to be looked at. I mean, we have businesses that are not paying their fair share. If you go on the Department of Revenue Administration's website, you'll see they estimate up to 30,000 businesses are not paying anything. We don't even know where they exist in our state. This needs to be looked at. It used to be called the stock and trade tax. Now it's the business profits tax. It needs to be looked at holistically because we depend almost 35% of our general fund on the business profits tax. I've said I'm willing to consider a tax increase on gasoline. I'm willing to actually do it on tobacco just to take that money right to the opiate crisis. I think we have to look at where we are in terms of revenues and see if we make changes in terms of a 2-year term for governor. And I want to emphasize that. It should be 4 years, but it's a 2-year term for governor. But some of the promises I made when I announced my candidacy, I am not going to run for further office. I'm not saying that about any person. That's a message I'm going to go in there and try and get some stuff done. And I will look at where we need to be. When I say that to you, we do not have a strategic economic plan. Doesn't that just strike you as odd? Mm-hmm. We need to do that. And I'll tell you who told me about that. It was Jackie Sully. She's the one who educated me on that. And I said, Jackie, I can't believe we don't have a plan. And the answer is we don't. We've got to have one. And the other message there is, which is my observation, I said it in my book, Cover Up, that too often the way we address problems in our state is we put a committee together. And they study it and we call it, what it is. I'm putting my neck on the line. I'm saying I will appoint it and chair it, which puts the obligation on me to explain it to the state. So we have real problems. I believe that how we fund government is one of it. But I am not advocating, as I run for this term, to have a new tax system. I think we will lose. I don't think it's right where the economy is. But I will go in, and what I see, I'll explain to the people if I'm governor.
Hi, Mark. Martha Richards,
Hi, Martha.
County Commissioner. You're in the heart of Northern Pass Country. What is your current stance on it, please?
My current stance is my only stance, which is what I alluded to earlier. We have these projects come in and they're divisive. I think the plan put forward by Northern Pass was wrong. I think the proposal they came in to amend it with burying more lines was good, but not good enough. It should not, in its current form, be passed. So what does that mean? Do they have to bury more lines? Yes. How far? Let's the process take place. But as it is standing right now, no, I don't support it.
They also have proposed that 3 of our towns would have their main streets ripped up rather than using the I-93 corridor, which, as you may know, the Federal Highway Authority urges these utility projects to use our highways, depending on what state DOTs want to do. So we're looking at Franconia, Woodstock, and downtown Plymouth being ripped up, which would have dreadful consequences for our already struggling businesses. If you become governor, would you make a very verbal statement about, if you're going to come here, you're going to have to use I-93 or some other route, but not our main streets, to protect our businesses?
Let me answer it this way. The governor of New Hampshire is one of the weakest forms of
Oh, I
government.
know, but the statement still could mean something.
Let me finish. I believe that the governor of the state, by virtue of that position, can use the bully pulpit and tell people what they believe, and importantly, bring the parties together. And that includes Kinder Morgan, by the way. Yes, we have to do what's in the best interest of the state. Using public rights of way, of course. We don't want to dig up towns in the streets. I get that. We do have a process. The site evaluation committee is going through that. We have interveners in that. People are speaking up. Obviously, you people are speaking up. We have to put pressure on the system. The pressure does have impact. So if I'm elected, I will show up and do what I believe in the right interests of this state. And I don't believe that project, as stated, is in the best interest of our state.
Thank you.
I was interested in, you're talking about education and working with the businesses sometimes, with education, high schools and so on, to integrate kids into jobs. And so on, and I always feel that you look at, I mean, people talk about the opioid crisis, and you see where these kids are coming from. I'm on the board of a little local nonprofit. It's called Communities for Alcohol and Drug-Free Youth. And our kids, and they work with the local high schools and elementary schools on prevention and educating the kids. And no one talks a whole lot about the prevention area, but that's where you need to start it. And it seems to me it fits in with education altogether. You know, if you get kids interested in actually doing something rather than doing drugs and experimenting, get them more interested in actually doing good things and working toward what their future is going to be. It would help with the whole opioid crisis. And it seems to me your program of working with the kids while they're in school toward higher education or jobs would fit into that.
Yeah, let me give you another way of looking at it. Most of us are a bit older in this room, and so a lot of us have been victimized, and you don't even know it. The financial markets are rigged, and a lot of people lost faith in the American financial system, and they took their money out and they put their money back into the stock market, for example. I've seen it. So when we did a lot of our fines, we made sure that some of this money, targeted this money towards education in the elementary school and beyond, to make sure kids knew how to balance a checkbook, what they knew about money, because we found kids were getting out of school and had no knowledge of finances. So the opioid crisis, we have 0.36% of the population of this country, and we have almost 4% of the deaths. Think about that. So we need to get as far into the elementary school system as possible and tell these kids what this means to their lives. We need to do, education is key to that. And we have to get the money to do it. Because that one of the things we learn is that it's easy to say, yeah, education, but as I'm sure a lot of you believe, where's the money to do it? You have to teach the teachers how to do that. The other thing is, to get back to the opioid crisis, which I'm finding out talking to people, are that when we do like mental health, which opiate is part of that, we don't have enough people who can actually do the counseling. they don't pay them enough, or they stress them out enough, or they leave and do something else. So we have to look at this not only in terms of education and prevention, but we have to get the sources of the communities to really deal with it, and we're not doing a good enough job. Okay, thank you.
I think there's one more. Gigi?
Do you think that the minimum wage in this state should be raised?
Unequivocally, yes. And if I may, let me give you some numbers on that. When I graduated from college in 1979, if you took the minimum wage as it was then, and you inflation adjust it to now, it's almost $10. So what does that mean? Productivity's gone up, inflation's gone up, but the average worker, they've gone down. Now, is there any thought in somebody's mind why people are angry today? It's that, very much so. And we have the lowest minimum wage in New England. We have high energy costs, healthcare costs. When I was growing up, it was relatively low housing costs, not any longer. So if we have a worker problem, not enough workers for jobs, how do you do an economy when we're paying people $7.25 an hour? It has to be done. And if I'm elected, I will go and do whatever it takes to get that minimum wage up. We have to do it.
Thank you, everybody. I want to remind you that on April 20th, we have Carol Shea Porter coming, and don't forget about the Italian farmhouse on April 7th. Okay, we hope you all join us. Thank you.